morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. Welcome to our Agentic AI Showcase, brought to you by our headline sponsors, Informatica and PromptQL, and our sponsors, Teradata, Precisely, and Lumi AI. I'm Brian Mink, co-founder and president of Data Science Connect, the world's largest ecosystem of data and AI executives. Today, we're excited to welcome hundreds of attendees from all over the world for an exclusive virtual event showcasing the most innovative agentic AI solutions through concise 10-minute demos. At DSC, we value your time and designed this event to provide impactful demos without any unnecessary fluff. Quickly identify solutions that meet your business needs and connect directly to the top leaders of pioneering agentic AI companies. We're honored to hear from a distinguished group of experts today from some of the leading solutions in agentic AI. Simran Karkumar, Senior Principal Product Manager at Informatica, Rob Dominguez, Engineering Manager at PromptQL, Trinath Yarlagada, Principal Architect at Teradata, Ruslan Sultanov, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Precisely, and Ibrahim Ashkar, Co-founder and CEO at Lumi AI. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. To make this feel a little more in person, we suggest you add a photo to your profile, include your bio, LinkedIn profile, and other information you want your fellow attendees to see. Next, please take advantage of the Q&A and chat features throughout the webinar. Presenters may address your questions during their allotted 10-minute time slot or respond directly in the Q&A and chat sections after they conclude. If you're wondering where your organization stands compared to others on your agentic AI journey, check out the poll questions in the right side. And finally, if you'd like to learn more about any of the solutions you see today or book a full demo, check out the calls to action below throughout the webinar. Now, without further ado, I'm excited to kick off our Agentic AI Showcase with our first presenter, who is Simran Karkumar from Informatica. Welcome, Simran.
All right, thank you, Brian. The AI is the new AI, right? The data management, data access pattern is changing. So we at Informatica wants to make sure that our customers are seamlessly able to consume and manage data. So Claire is our AI/ML engine from Informatica, and here you can see how Claire has evolved over time. We started with manual, then have moved to predictive AI, then have launched our conversational AI application, and now we are building all those autonomous data management agents which can do most of the things, right, if not all for you to help in your data management journey. So we from Informatica have launched various data management agents, those purpose-built agents to, number one, improve the productivity of the data professional and democratize data access so that you as a data professionals, regardless of your background and your technical expertise, you can go and access the data wherever you want, however you want it. In this demo today, I'm going to go and play the role of a marketing analyst at Acme Corporation. My job is to go and find out the top countries based on the various order volume for an upcoming marketing campaign that is coming. In this process, I'm going to go and look at our enterprise and look at all the customer data, product data, and supplier data, and then find out the relevant information. It doesn't stop there. I need to go and create a data product so that I can go and run it over and over again, right, every month. So with that, let me share my screen real quick. So you can see my screen right now. So here, first I need to go and start with the relevant data, right? So I can go and start something like this. Show me the retail customer data sets. And as soon as I do so, Claire is taking my query. It's then swimming through my enterprise catalog that I've set up with all the data sets to find out the relevant information, right? So here you can see that agentic Claire is in action, is generating the response. So it first, according to the the framework, the agentic framework, it comes up with a plan and says that, okay, I'm going to go and use something called discovery agent to discover those data sets. And then if multiple instances or multiple copies are found, it's going to come back to me and ask for the confirmation. Of course, it is end-to-end autonomous, but human is in the loop and human is in the driving seat. So it's looking for all the data sets. And you can see the reasoning trace as well. And here, right, you can see the number of queries that it triggered in my catalog. And you can see in a moment, I've got those business data set, right? As well as the technical ones right here. And it's kind of generating summary and so on, right? So I'm more interested in this retail customer, which is this asset in Snowflake, and I want to do further query on that. So I can go and ask something like, show me an overview of the asset, right? I can go and say like first asset in second grid. What do I mean by that? So there are two grids. One is business asset, one is technical asset. I'm saying, okay, in that second grid, I am more interested in learning more about this retail customer, right? So here, as soon as I hit enter, it's going to go back to my enterprise catalog that I have set up with data quality rules, profiling, and all those things to go and give me more information about it, right? So here we'll see how many columns are out there, how many data elements are part of this retail customer, what kind of information does it contain, what are the critical data elements, what is the data quality score, to understand more about the metadata of this asset. So here you can see right here, I've got the key data details here, right? The data quality score. So it's probably a good data set to look at. The business glossaries, the classification, the relationship, and so on, right? The next thing I'm going to do is like, I'm going to go and ask for the lineage. So I can go and say like, show me the lineage. So lineage in the enterprise context is very, very important because you want to be sure about the data sets that you're going to go work with, how the data is flowing into that asset, and how the data is flowing further from that asset, right? So in the context, the lineage becomes so important. So where you're going to say, if I go click on the reasoning trace, it's going to go and show me exactly what is happening under the hood, right? So it's being a query generated, then the information is retrieved from my catalog, and then it is painted on the screen. Now that I know the lineage, I know the data quality score, I know the profiling, now probably this is a good candidate for me to start asking further questions. So first, I want to go and find out a data sample, right? So I can say, show me a data sample, right? And as you probably have noticed already, there are some suggested prompts as and when I'm interacting with the system. That way, if I'm not sure what to do next, these are the suggested prompts that I can go on and try to take my conversation forward. So since I'm going to go and look at the data here, so it's first checking if I have the relevant permission privileges to the asset. So in the enterprise context, again, this is very, very critical because you don't want anyone to go and look at your data, any random person. So it's first understood, right? Who am I as a person? Then if I have access, and then if I do have the right set of privilege permission, it is connecting real time, taking a sample from the Snowflake source and then sending it through a very secure WebSocket channel. And this is what I have right here. So here you can see I've got like customer name, their email addresses, city, all the demographic information that you might have. So I know understand the customer, right? The data set. The next thing I'm going to do it like show me the countries with most orders, right? This was my question, right? I want to go find out the top countries based on the order volume. Here again, the agent came back with a plan and saying like, hey, I'm going to go and employ discovery agent for finding out these details. And then it's going to go and present me here. Remember, I did not talk about any particular data sets that the information needs to be looked at. So this is my question. And then Claire is figuring out, right, based on the access permission, based on the enterprise context, what data sets to go after to get answer to these questions. And you can see here in a moment, we'll be able to go and get those top countries with most of the order volume. And right here, you can see that there is a nice visual. There are multiple options to see. In this case, I can see that France is the country where I'm generating most of my orders from. Right. So you have seen like I've got 4 or 5 prompts to get here. Instead of doing so, I can go and give it a complex data management goal. Right here, I'm saying using the retail customer asset in Snowflake, create a mapping to answer these questions. Mapping is the data pipeline, right? So if I go and give it a prompt like this, now it's going to go and do all of these things, right? I was doing step by step. It's going to go and say, okay, I'm going to use the data integration agent to go and build a mapping. Of course, there will be a discovery that's going to happen in the background, and you can see in a moment, I have this mapping right here. Now remember, right, we have done a lot of things here. So me, right, being a marketing analyst, I may not have any context about, right, the right and relevant data assets in my organization. I may not know how to write a query. I may not know how to build a pipeline, right, etc. So I might have to rely on my data engineers. So in this case, what we have done here is just by using some of this natural language prompt, I was able to go and generate a very nice mapping. Now, this is my data product. I can go and put it in production and let it run every month to go and see, right, those details. So while the mapping is waiting here, so in summary, in this demo, what we have done, we have discovered the various enterprise asset, looked at their metadata, right, looked at their lineage profiling, and eventually we have got a nice mapping right here. I will quickly show you one more thing here, right? Data quality. In the enterprise context, data quality automation is so important because the data sets that you're dealing with has null values, missing values, right? All those things. So here you can use clear data quality agent to go and clean that data set. I just run some prompts right before this session to save some time here. So here I said, okay, I want you to go analyze this file and help me clean this data set, right? If you want to see there, this is my file with my customer that data sets, but I've got some junk values, right? Some null values, etc. This is not in proper order, right? I want to go and use the data quality agent to do that. So now agent has come back with a plan. It says that, okay, this is what my steps are to go and clean that file. I'm going to go do the metadata inference there. I'll go identify the critical data elements right there. I'm going to go analyze the functional dependency across the columns, right? Date of birth column might be functionally dependent on the age column, and so on. It's going to go and find out the statistical DQ issues, right? It's going to go find out all those null values, duplicate values, outliers. It will go and standardize those columns, right? So the card type could be, there could be some error with the data format. So it's going to go fix that, and then it's going to go clean the code. If you can see here, I said, yes, proceed with the plan. In the interest of time, I'm just going to show you the output. If you see right here, this is what the agent has done. So here I started with this. You can see MasterCard was one of the card type field. And you can see initially it was like MSTR, the short form. It comes standardized to MasterCard, right? So that it's usable by me. At the end of everything, it came back with a reusable maplet, which I can use in my data integration workflow or my pipeline in an enterprise so that I can go and run this module over and over again to clean a similar file. This is very, very powerful. So I've only shown you maybe 30% of what Claire can do in the agentic data management world with all the agents that you have. We have this master data management agents, which can go and help you do a bunch of other things there. We have got data quality agents that you have seen, and there are other things. So I'd highly encourage you to go and look at our website to find out more information about Agentic Claire. All right, I'll pass it on to Brian or the next presenter.
Thanks, everyone. Excellent presentation. If you guys enjoyed what you saw, make sure that you book a follow-up with Informatica via that copy action. Thank you, Samra. And now I'm going to turn things over to our next presenter, who is Rob Dominguez from PromptQL.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
Hey, Rob, I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Promise not to make any comments about the goatee this time. It still looks good, though. So there we are.
Thank you.
All right. We can see me there. Awesome.
You're all set. I'll turn things over.
Thanks very much. Yeah. I can see the CTA is already popped down in the bottom right-hand corner. That's awesome. So if you want to go ahead and dive into our product, you're more than welcome to, but I'll be talking about that a little bit more at the end as well. Yeah, we're going to be talking about scaling accuracy. And as we see there, it says the AI analyst with enterprise grade accuracy. My name is Rob Dominguez. I'm an engineering manager at PromptQL. I've been with the company for about 4 years now. One of the big things that we focus on is really this ability to have this collaborative context whenever you're working with AI agents. If you've been to any of these sessions before, you've probably seen some things that are a little bit similar to what I'll be showing, but we're going to dive into some new perspectives on the product itself. Let me go ahead and jump to my first slide here. One of the things that I like to start with whenever we're talking about working across these AI tools is asking this question, which of these is worse? An AI tool that says, I don't know, or one that gives you the wrong answer? And for anybody that's worked with AI tools or large language models, you've surely encountered a situation like what I'm about to show here. Also helps if you're a Lord of the Rings fan. So we got Bilbo, and then he's sitting there asking, ChatGPT, after all, why not? Why shouldn't I keep it? Of course, talking about the ring. And we hear those 3 or 4 words that makes every engineer or everybody that's worked with AI cringe. You're absolutely right. Becomes kind of like this sycophantic nature where the tool itself ends up telling you exactly what you want to hear, as opposed to what may be the actual right answer and what's going to be valuable for you as well. So the question to think about is, how do we actually fix that at PromptQL? Well, instead of just talking through things, I'm going to actually show you a demo. If you've seen our sessions before, if you have any familiarity with our product, we've actually changed the UI, and this is now being available to everyone else out there. This is the PromptQL app that we have, and I have a demo environment here called Shelfwise, which is our retail demo. The first thing you'll know is that this is a little bit of a different interface than what you're used to seeing inside of AI applications. Instead of just being a chat or a thread, what we end up seeing essentially is a collaborative interface that allows us to kind of lurk and see what other people in our team are doing if they're in these public conversations, or what we call public threads. You'll see kind of on the left-hand side here that we have this lock icon, we have this hashtag symbol as well, or this pound, depending upon your age. And what that means is that we can have private rooms, we can have public rooms where we can go and have these conversations. What this allows and really demonstrates is the fact that these agentic tools that we're bringing in PromptQL as one of those are really collaborative tools that are another coworker or another teammate that's right there with you that you can have conversations with. We can see that we have this listing again of all these different threads that are going on, and we'll dive into one in just a moment so we can see more detail. But one of the biggest things that we've realized that's important is really being able to bring in data from disparate sources, and that data can live in a lot of different places. We can kind of think of things in 2 categories. We can think of data sources, things like relational databases, or even NoSQL databases. And we can think of things like integrations or SaaS providers as well. What PromptQL allows you to do is to bring together all of these different disparate pieces of data and be able to ask really any question and perform any task on top of that data. That means, as an example, if I've connected things like my Gmail or my Google Docs, I can actually create assets and, using those APIs, actually execute functions on my data itself. So for some of the things that we'll see is we're creating dashboards, or we're trying to create analyses of different questions that we have, whatever they may be, we can actually go ahead and have a Google slide created automatically or an email sent automatically, again, all from the interface itself. To show you how quickly and easily you can add in a data source, I'm just going to go ahead and come down here. I'm going to call this Rob, DSC. I'm going to change it to private just to not confuse any of my coworkers here while we're doing this call, and drop in this read-only connection string that I have here, so it's plenty safe. I'll say connect Postgres, and then within just a moment, we're going ahead and syncing our schema and figuring out what the shape of all that data is that's there. I'll go ahead and say, hey, you know what? I want to go ahead and track all of these things. And then boom, at this point, I can now start asking questions on top of all that data that I have. It was only 10 tables right there, but you could imagine we have customers that have thousands of tables, and the exact same thing is true. You have access to your data to the LLM that quickly. There's complete RBAC associated with this as well. So if you want to be very precise about who has access to what resources, that'll be honored as well. Let me jump back to kind of the full view of things that we have here. I have one thread in particular that I want to dive into just to demonstrate kind of the power of PromptQL itself. We can see that our VP of product marketing, Savri, asked this question of what promotions did we run last month. Of course, this is on a synthetic data set, so this is not our actual promotions. Sorry, don't want to tease you with that. That's not what we're doing here today. But there's a couple of things that jump out whenever you see PromptQL's response come through. The very first thing is that it has this listing of wiki pages in the beginning. We think it's very critical to have this semantic layer that's not only the shape of the data that's connected, but also a lot of the tribal knowledge that's inherent to the company itself and really just stuck inside of people's heads. We'll talk a little bit later on about how we can actually manage the semantic layer through the conversations themselves, opposed to anybody having to do any kind of manual labor or chores, which of course nobody wants to do, which is why so often in the past this idea of context and semantic layers has kind of evaporated. The very next thing that you'll see is essentially an assumption being made or clarification and understanding from PromptQL. So instead of, again, Bilbo asking that question about why shouldn't he keep the ring, Essentially what's happening here is PromptQL is going to say, well, let me think about this for a second. Let me clarify some assumptions. So it's going to let you know essentially what it knows and what it does not know. What it does know is being pulled from these different wiki pages themselves, which actually are being generated just through the conversation. On the right-hand side, we have this artifacts pane, and you can see that as we're working through the conversation itself, we're iteratively creating kind of these almost like checkpoints or data points along the way that are different artifacts that could be text, could be tables, could be summarizations, or it could even be complex UIs that serve as dashboards. Through having the conversation, we'll see that a Sabri starts to put some more information in there. We can see that there's some code that's being run, and we can always expand that and see more information about the actual executables that are being run on top of our connected data. So if I'm a technical person and want to see more detail, I can always expand that and find out more of what's going on. I'm just going to keep scrolling through here, and occasionally after one of the interactions, you'll see PromptQL telling you, hey, it wants to learn. So we can actually expand this and see that, hey, it's letting us know where the promotions table is, and then it's letting us know that there's a column name that hasn't been documented yet. So I could say add to wiki, and what it'll do is kind of give me some brownie points and say, hey, Rob taught PromptQL, and then there's more information there for the next time somebody comes in and asks that question, because we're essentially collectively adding to that information, to that context the entire way through. I'm going to go ahead and skip all the way to the bottom of this thread, but we can see that there's multiple people that are being brought into this, right? So if there's something that a Sabri is unsure about or any coworker is unsure about, they can just tag their teammate and they'll get a notification in their particular channel of choice, whether that's Slack, whether that's email, whatever it may be, so that they can be brought into the conversation and help provide that expertise and that knowledge to teach PromptQL and make sure that we're getting the right answer. What we end up seeing is that in the end, we can actually generate on demand very accurate dashboards and essentially repeatable programs that can be used at any point and invoked either inside of these different threads or via APIs that allow us to be integrated in with various other systems. Just a little quick scroll through so we can see what's happening there. Awesome. And I'll jump back. I'll close that. What this looks like from the wiki perspective, or that semantic layer that we were talking about. So we've already looked at the My Data. I'm going to click on this wiki option that we have here. What we end up seeing is that, again, the majority of these pages that we have that represent all the tribal knowledge of this company called Shelfwise, they're generated simply through conversation. So as we're providing more information and more context to PromptQL, it's learning and it's putting this into the semantic layer. Now, as a human, I have complete audibility and control over what's happening here as well. So if I want to make sure that the right information is being included, I can always jump into, for example, customer analytics. And I can see a few things here. I can see some aliases at the top. So I know as people are asking questions and prompts to PromptQL itself, they may not always say customer analytics. They may say the acronym CLV or customer insights, whatever else there may be. I can also see a few things. Blue jumps out at me as, hey, I can actually go ahead and see the information that's available here because these pages exist. But if I see red, that's an indication to me of, hey, we actually need to create this page. So I can click on that and create the page itself. And if I wanted to manually edit, I could, or again, this could happen through the threads, through conversation. Additionally, I had the capability with my teammates to talk about these different entities as well. So I can come in here and have a conversation. If anybody's ever edited a Wikipedia entry before, it's a very similar process or a very similar feel to that. And then finally, my favorite piece is that we have diffing from version by version. So if you want to have that audibility trail to understand how things are changing from instance to instance, you can do it right here by clicking through and see who did what and when. What I want to end with, because I realize that now I've somehow gone all the way to the end of my time, is just kind of this question. Which direction are you going? Adoption or obsolescence? We really think that the majority of AI initiatives that are failing out there are failing because of people getting these confidently wrong systems. Let me stop my timer there. These confidently wrong systems because there's not this continual learning and feedback that should be happening. And that's exactly what PromptQL does through these conversations, through the wiki, through bringing in teammates. So what I'll leave you with is decide already. Try PromptQL today. You can go to our website, promptql.io. Again, we have the link there in the CTA, which I know our marketing team would appreciate you clicking as opposed to just going to the website itself. So thank you so much.
Excellent. Thanks, Rob. If you guys like what you saw, make sure you look up follow up with PromptQL, call to action below. And now turn things over. Thanks, Rob. Turn things over to our next presenter, who is Trinath Ralagana from Teradata. Welcome, Trinath.
Thank you. Hope you're doing well. So, hello everyone. I'm Srinal Lakota. I'm the principal solution architect at Teradata Consulting Services from America's Creation. So let me try to share my screen just so that it's working. There we go. Can you see that? Perfect.
There we go. You're all set.
Excellent. So as I mentioned, so being at Teradata Consulting, I have a unique opportunity by hearing firsthand from our customers on what are the common barriers they face to take their agents live. Right, you've seen during the presentations, and it's a common resonant theme. So we find that there are many pain points. First is slow time to value, as building agents can be time consuming. As you might have seen, it's easy to first build code, but then iterating and putting guardrails and controls are resource-intensive tasks. Then there's the complexity of integrating, as agents might not have compatibility with your existing data pipelines. And changing business processes can be challenging, because if you have an agent, how are you going to change that? And how does your team adapt to it? In addition, there's many companies don't have like dedicated resources or kind of focused on agentic work with time to spare to build. So there's the scalability concern from governance point of view, as many AI agents involve data movement or needs to access other platforms. And finally, the cost of developing and implementing AI agents are actually increasing. So to address these challenges, Teradata has worked on developing a agent service offer by building out our agent analyst by partnering with Google Cloud to accelerate the AI-driven decision making by bringing autonomous analytics. We are focused primarily on the end user and business user who can directly connect to the data without technical knowledge, so that we can eliminate the data movement issues, integrating friction, and long development cycles while maximizing the value of the existing platform. So the agent seamlessly integrates by design to work effortlessly with the existing Vantage environment. So Teradata Enterprise MCP is integrated as part of it, and all it's hosted within the Google Cloud Service Platform, minimizing any kind of integration challenges you might have by bringing in new vendor and etc. So we provide enterprise-grade reliability by being vetted within the Google Gemini standards and making sure that we have built-in governance and we ensure the security and compliance are factored in at scale. And core thing is it's very cost efficient by reducing your upfront cost by leveraging shared innovation between Teradata and Google Cloud for a total lower cost of ownership. And so as it's led by our consulting team. From a services point of view, you have access to our expertise where we encapsulate the best practices and domain-specific knowledge, empowering your teams without deep technical skills. So the core thing here is we have faster time to value, where we have pre-built workflows, where we accelerate deployment, shorten development cycles, and deliver insights really quick. So our analyst agent is designed to do what most capable humans do, but with controls, with recognition that this is an agent, so that it's, even though it shows confidence, we have controls behind the scenes so that the end user, even though they experience just like how humans are interacting, we have the controls in place. So we ensure, like, first from a core capability perspective, we ensure that it's agentic query planning. So this isn't like a simple text to SQL converter. So when you ask a complex business question, the agent breaks it down into multi-step analysis and autonomously decides which agent to pick based on the relevant task at hand. It reassesses the results, and if something doesn't look right, it investigates further. Then it continues that processing rather than just like a pre-built workflow. So it's true autonomous by nature. And secondly, we have secure pushdown processing. So all the computations, everything happen inside your Vantage platform, which is part of a Teradata database platform. And so you have no data extraction. So if you're already our customer for decades. We have everything built into it, and your compliance team will be really happy about it. And when we bring in our system, actually adapts to any data model. So we work with our customers' existing tables. It could be EHR, a retail point of sales, financial records. So no custom training is required. You point it to the data dictionary, and it learns your schema. And if it doesn't find it, it actually has capabilities within the Teradata system where it can actually explore thousands and thousands of data sets. It creates its own cache, and then it writes the SQLs, and then it starts exploring the true business questions without actually causing unnecessary interruptions to the business user who might really not know what the data is, but they just want to get the answer. And finally, we maintain the contextual exploration on making sure that no matter how long it is, we have appropriate controls to make sure the context is intact. So we wanted to kind of show from soup to nuts. So we wanted to show the framework and how we built it. So let me walk you through that from an architecture perspective. So we start at the top where we provide this agent as part of your Gemini Enterprise package. So when your company buys Enterprise from Google, you can launch it. And when you work with our consulting services, we would deploy the analyst agent into the Gemini Enterprise web interface. And this gives you an enterprise-grade identity management out of the box. So moving down, you will have all the intelligence, the agent behaviors, the rules, the data dictionaries, all in the configuration files, which is what our services team will come and configure it. And this is critical for enterprise deployment because we really understand what are the core crux of the things you need, and we can customize the behavior without touching the code. Now, here's where the core crux of the innovation is from an orchestrator perspective. We built this with the mindset that it's like a senior lead. We use the Gemini LLMs, and we make sure that it does three things. From a routing perspective, it decides which specialist agent actually handles each part of the request. We have a loop control, knowing when it digs deeper versus when to synthesize. And then finally, it kind of combines all of that into a coherent insight system. So finally, we have these specialist agents, which all kind of support these main agent, which are you can construct the SQL, you can have builders, you can have executor, which actually runs the actual thing within the Teradata system. And you have Python, which would write any kind of data science queries. But again, it's all each agent and sub-agent are kind of grounded with controls to ensure that there is no hallucination. We ensure that the institutional knowledge is kind of baked into the system when we deploy it to our customer. And each of these agents have access to the Teradata Enterprise MCP server, where we can coexist near the Vantage system. As you know, the Teradata MCP provides secure access to the Vantage environment and ensures authorized user level querying. So this is important because, as you might have heard through the two speakers you've done, if you are authorized to some data and your peer has a different authorization, because of Teradata's built-in capability, the depth of analysis actually varies based on who asks that question. So we ensure that if you as a person do not have some data and the other person has the data, the Gemini is aware of that because of the enforcement from an authorization perspective, which we create behind the scenes. So all happens from an architectural perspective. All computation happens within the Vantage environment, and the enterprise security is kind of baked in by design. So let me show you from a demo perspective how we do. So let me imagine myself playing the role of a hospital administrator. And this is the typical Gemini interface you get when your team buys the Gemini Enterprise license. And you would have the analyst agent kind of shown when you log into Gemini Enterprise. And I'm going to act as if I'm a hospital admin. I have no database knowledge. I have no understanding on what a table is, what a column is. All I know is I have to make sure the financials of my of my organization are intact, and I have basic understanding on specific conditions. So as a hospital administrator, I got flagged by my quality team that our COPD readmissions are trending up. COPD is like a chronic lung condition. Think of it as chronic bronchitis. And these patients leave the hospitals and come back within 30 days. It's called a readmission, and it's expensive. If a patient is covered by Medicare in America, it actually penalizes the hospitals for high readmission rates. So this matters financially, not just clinically. So I'm going to ask a simple open-ended question, nothing about my data, and our COPD admission rates are staying high, so what's happening? So notice I didn't write any SQL, I didn't specify which tables to join, I just asked a business question to explain in plain English. So let's unpack what happened, right? So as we can see, there's like the agent comes back with 23.9 readmission rate, and for COPD patients versus 16.6 for everyone else. That's a 7-point gap. So COPD patients are about 50% more likely to bounce back. But here's what I want you to notice. Look at the section called like what is not driving it. They didn't just answer my question. It anticipated my follow-up. It checked medication adherence. Are patients taking their meds? Virtually identical between two groups. It checked whether patients have a primary care doctor for follow-up. Again, no difference. So it ruled out the obvious clinical explanations and pointed towards something else. So if you see there is smoking status combined with insurance, it actually also created the infographic. And as you can see, the agent flagged that smokers and limited insurance coverage are high risk. I want to see that in detail, right? Not just summary, but the actual numbers. So that's one of the key things where when we actually look at it and we ask it, so I'm going to ask like, okay, show me the smoking insurance segment in detail. And the Gemini actually thinks through it by working with our MCP platform. It runs multiple queries, right? It gets one response and then it analyzes it. It comes back with you more details. We can control how many loops, how much is the costing factor and everything. And then what it does is you, instead of like, if you ask like your analyst, and usually like when we work with our customers or like business users, they work with an IT team and they have to open a ticket or have some questions, they have meetings. It's usually days long before they can follow up. That's the crux of what we're doing. And this is where, if you see, when I asked that follow-up question on smoking insurance, we are looking finally at like 15 different segments breaking down by readmission rate. And dual eligible patients, as you can see, who currently smoke, 30.2 readmissions, uninsured patients who have like 29.6%. Now look at the bottom, right? So the Medicare smokers are like 22%. Now, the same disease, same behaviors with smoking, but an 8-point swing in the outcome, but purely from a socioeconomic situation. That's where I want you to focus on. Let's learn more, right, from the group perspective and then understand what's happening. And as you can see, in fact, it actually even created a heat map so that you can visually see what is happening and understand what are the specific conditions. And in fact, the system actually went ahead and even recommended me, like, do a little group specifically to see what else is happening. And so I'm like, okay, sure, go ahead and tell me about this dual eligible group, because this is more like people who are in both Medicare and Medicaid eligibility. And then the system actually figured out that, okay, I don't need to give you all the noise around it. Let me just give you a graph. And then it kind of showed me that, okay, so you'll see the transportation barriers is like kind of the highest. That means that 1 in 5 patients literally cannot get to a follow-up appointment. They might not have a car. They might not be able to afford a bus. They might be too sick to use the public transportation. So the question becomes, what would it cost for me to actually help them, right? How do we make sure that it's actually valuable? So what I asked was, okay, now tell me what it would cost for me to implement. Immediately, it swapped itself from being an analyst to a financial person, right? Financial analyst. We have that as part of our agent. So tomorrow, if you want to work with our services team and make sure that we build a specific agent for that, we can plug and play it. based on what's really needed so that you can work with the customers. And here, if you see, it said, okay, I can take to my CFO saying that the agent actually calculated each readmission cost at about 10,000. And tier 2 is intensive. Tier 1 is the light touch, where you have like 2 counseling sessions per patient, about 800. And the agent is actually recommending tier 1. And so that makes sense, right? So you start small and you move on to the concept of like what is actually needed. So then what I did was I asked, okay, go ahead and create a pilot design for me. So if you work with companies, I'm sure most of you did, is work with companies like Salesforce who have their own campaign management system, or Teradata Managed Customer Experience. We have capabilities where once you get the insight, you can actually build out actual campaigns and target the customer. So here, the system actually built it, and we can integrate with this through Gemini, where we can actually plug in and build out the appropriate MCP or scale file to directly integrate it. So
Hi, John.
that's kind of like a demo.
Sorry to interrupt. We're running a bit long, so I just wanted to just wrap things up.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. So hope the analyst demo resonated, and feel free to comment in the chat if you'd like to go deeper into the Teradata and where Teradata is heading. Please check out the link we'll be sharing in the chat to the Cube interview. So where our Chief Product Officer outlines the Teradata's vision for the autonomous enterprise. We've also dropped a link in the chat to register for our next Data Science Connect session. So the plug and play event happening on the March 31st. So we'd love to see you and continue the conversation. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Srinath. Excellent demo. If you liked what you saw, make sure you book a follow-up call with Teradata at the link below. And now I'm going to introduce our next presenter, who is Ruslan Sultanov from Precisely. Welcome, Ruslan.
Hey, Brian. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm going to just share my screen and get started. Okay. I think everybody can see me, can hear me okay.
You're awesome.
Right. Thank you, Brian. Thanks to Data Science Connect for having me. My name is Ruslan. I am a senior product marketing manager at Precisely. And today, I just want to talk about something that we're seeing across almost every organization experimenting with AI agents. And I'm talking, of course, about the data problem behind agentic AI. Now, most teams are excited about agents orchestrating workflows and operating autonomously, and so am I. But the agents are only as good as the data that they operate on. So for the next few minutes, I want to really zoom in on the data layer required to make agentic systems reliable, and specifically talk about location data as it relates to agentic AI. Now, if you build a demo agent demo before, you know that the first version usually works just fine, but as soon as you connect it to real enterprise data, you'll start running into issues. The data that agents need is often hard to discover. It is missing context. It's outdated, inconsistent across different pipelines, and it's difficult to govern once AI starts acting on it. So agents end up making decisions with partial or conflicting information. And this creates what we call the agentic AI data integrity gap, which is the gap between the data that enterprises actually have and the data that autonomous systems require to operate safely and effectively. And from working with many teams implementing AI pipelines and agentic workflows, we found 6 characteristics of agentic-created data. The few that matter the most to the builders like you are would be unified data access. Agents need a consistent way to discover and access data across hybrid environments. Context, agents need additional attribution, such as location, business context, or relationships between entities. Freshness, agents, as you know, cannot rely on stale or periodic updates. And then finally, data governance. When an autonomous system takes action, you need to understand where the data is coming from and whether it can be trusted. And at Precisely, we deliver agentic-created data through the Data Integrity Suite. The suite brings together a set of data integrity services that can run wherever your data lives, whether it's on-prem, whether it's in the cloud, or across both. The services are API-driven and interoperable, so they fit naturally into existing data pipelines and application architectures. They also share a common metadata foundation, which helps organizations understand, govern, and improve their data as it moves through the pipelines and into the AI systems. And on top of that foundations, we're now introducing additional AI capabilities to help teams manage data integrity more effectively. There are 3 layers to this. At the base, you have Agentic Fabric, which governs how AI interacts with enterprise data and allows organizations to bring their own LLMs. On top of that, there are AI-assisted features embedded directly into the data integrity services, things like intelligent recommendations, automation, metadata generation. And finally, there are AI agents and assistants, like our very own assistant, Geo, that I'm going to show you today, that can help perform data integrity tasks while operating within guardrails defined by the organization. So now, to make this a little bit more concrete, I'll show a quick example. One of the most common issues that we see in AI systems is location data quality. And I am not just referring to poor address quality here, but also cases where location data doesn't provide enough contextual information, forcing downstream models and agents start making incorrect assumptions. And that's not something that traditional data management tools usually consider in general, let alone as it relates to agentic AI. So in this demo, I'm going to show how Geo helps validate and standardize address data, enrich it with additional attributes, and add those steps directly into a data pipeline. So here we find ourselves in the data integrity suite. And the first thing I'm going to do is put my business user hat on. So let's say I'm a telco specialist, and I know we have a list of serviceable addresses sitting in Snowflake that can serve as a resource to understand the risk and opportunities at those locations and potentially indicate where we could expand our network coverage. But in order to do so, I will need additional information about these locations. Normally, I would go through the data catalog and have to manually search for those, but to make it easier for business users, Geo can serve as this layer to simply search for this data set, and it will help you locate that data set in the connected data sources. So there are multiple service addresses tables that we have. Some of them are stored in Snowflake, some of them are stored in Databricks, so we're going to find the one that we're looking for here in a second. This was the table I was looking for. Here, we will first see a quick description of a table. We can also investigate the fields if we want to, but what I really want to do is I want to validate the addresses that we have stored in this table and add additional real-world context to this data set. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new pipeline. Now, normally, I would go and manually add various steps to the pipeline, but with Geo, I can simply ask using natural language. And here, I'll just use the out-of-the-box prompt. I could also just type this in or type whatever I need Geo to do here. So with this request, Geo is going to take a look at the data sets that we have available in the pipeline builder right now, the data sets that Precisely have available, which include property attributes, various natural risks. But first, Geo suggests that I add a verify address step and indicates that our data set is missing the Precisely ID. So I'm just going to listen to Geo and what Geo says, and I'm going to do it right away. While this is happening, let me explain why it's so important to have a Precisely ID within our data set. Addresses have a tendency to change and be stored in different formats. So even in cases where they seem accurate and complete, like in our case, it doesn't seem like we have any anomalies in the address field. A unique ID can be this one field that we can join enrichment data on. So you'll see a part of this step, we're not only adding a Precisely ID, but we also parsing our address to make sure that the downstream analytics are consistent. And for the next step, Geo just confirms that we're talking about the telecommunications vertical and want to clarify which line of business this entity represents. I know we talk a lot about autonomous agents. In this case, we're looking at a semi-autonomous agent that is keeping the human, such as myself, in the loop, and ensuring that it is taking the actions that we would want to take. Here, Geo is gauging what's our end goal, and we'll offer options for further enrichment based on what we're trying to accomplish. So in this case, let's say we choose network infrastructure risk assessment. So we want to understand risks at those serviceable addresses a little bit better. And in this step, Geo is going to simply suggest what additional data enrichment sets we can add to our pipeline without us having to manually go through the step adding each of those data sets into the pipeline. So we're going to add a step here. So you can see how in just a few clicks, we already added a lot more value to the data set compared to what we were originally looking at. And this was a location data quality use case, which is not always dependent on an address, which is an important point I want to reiterate again. It's not always about the address quality and consistency and completeness. A lot of the time, it's just the context that we're missing. From here on, we could ask Geo to add additional steps. We could manually add additional steps, or we could run pipeline and push changes to where the data lives, which is in this case Snowflake. But you can see how these agents can help both automate tasks that traditionally require more manual work, while also getting your data to where it needs to be to deliver value to agentic AI. So what you saw is just a small example of how we think about making data agent ready. What we're focused on at Precisely is helping teams build that data integrity layer so AI systems and agents can operate on data that is actually trustworthy. So if that resonates with you, we'll be happy to continue the conversation, show more examples, or talk through how teams are applying this in real production environments. I will leave a few helpful links for you to learn more about the Data Integrity Suite and how you can reach us. But with that, I want to thank the audience for your time and thank Brian again for having me today. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Ruslan. If you like what you saw, make sure you click that call to action, but follow up with Precisely below. Now I'm going to turn things over to our next presenter, Ibrahim Ashkar, who is co-founder and CEO of Lumi AI. Ibrahim, good to see you again.
Brian, thanks for having me.
All right.
Sharing my screen, and we'll get into it.
You're all set.
All right, perfect. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Ibrahim from Lumi AI. We apply agentic workflows to streamline analytics and help companies find value hidden in large quantities of operational data sets. Think sales, inventory, procurement data that either originates from some sort of ERP like SAP or Oracle, or is stored in a data warehouse like Snowflake or Databricks. Customers like Kroger, Deloitte, Swarovski, Compass Group, and others use Lumi to improve specific metrics like average order value, ordered versus shipped, or more broadly, to reduce procurement costs or free up working capital. In short, and instead of building more dashboards, you simply define your objective and let Lumi analyze your full data set and work continuously towards that outcome. This is the new standard for analytics, having this agentic layer that is connected directly to your source systems or your data warehouse that understands the quirks of your data model, your business terminology, and where both business teams and data teams alike can just interact with it through a conversational chat interface, asking questions in plain language or waiting for Lumi to proactively surface issues of opportunities that traditional BI tools were never designed to find. If you haven't started building towards this, you're falling a bit behind, because the question is no longer whether analytics should be agentic or not, it's how quickly you can operationalize it. So let's jump into a demo and actually show you what this looks like. All right, so what we're looking at here is an email sent by Lumi, alerting the user, in this case, an inventory planner at a retailer, about an increase in excess inventory. So clicking the link opens up the platform. And what we can see here is an expanded view of the insight. We can see the full details on how it was generated, including the actual prompt that was used. And if you'd like, you can also expand out the query block to see the explanations, assumptions, and the actual code that was used to generate the insight. There is no black box here. We're all about building trust through being very transparent. You can also customize the visual as needed. There's a wide variety of controls, as you can see, and you can really create some stunning visuals if you kind of work around with the controls there. A summary of the key insights is also available, and in this case, clearly pointing out that store 87 is having a bit of issues. We can also see that outlier in the graph over here, where there is a bit of an inventory overstocking issue. And typically when you see that, you want to think about how do you move inventory that's not moving fast enough in a certain store to another location where it's selling a lot faster. And to explore that idea, you can just click drill down. And now we're essentially in a new chat interface that allows me to just explore the data and continue my analysis by simply asking questions via the prompt bar. It has the data that I was looking at already preloaded, along with recommended actions, so summary of findings, as well as clickable follow-ups I can just click and run. In this case, and since I just want to focus on this outlier over here, i.e. location 87, I'll just start off with a very simple question. Which items have excess inventory at location or driving excess inventory at location 87? I can toggle show thinking if you want to see the agents and how they interact with one another. So the first agent's pulling the context from the knowledge base. So all the tables, the relevant tables and fields, as well as just details on how to calculate certain metrics is pulled in and provided from the agents. It then also generates the query. So again, the SQL or Python code that is being used, it's currently running the code that it's generating. And then within just a few seconds, it'll retrieve the data and summarize the findings. Perfect. So let me collapse it all. All right. So what we can see here now is that we've isolated the worst offenders. We've isolated the subset of items that are causing the most excess inventory at location 87. And we should probably try to see if we can move this inventory to another location that's selling faster, right? And so what we can do is just essentially ask a question here. For each of these items, find the best location to absorb the excess inventory, right? And again, we can kind of see Lumi spring into action over here, pulling the relevant context, generating the query as we're going. And it's just important to note that, you know, for those not familiar with inventory rebalancing, it is a quite involved analysis. It requires multi-step reasoning and nuanced logic. We're essentially asking Lumi to analyze sales and inventory trends across every item location combination, and then find the stores that can absorb the excess inventory and sell it. This type of analysis would typically take a human analyst a few days to a week to craft. Lumi does that in seconds. Right now, what's happening is Lumi's just running a bit of the code. It ran into an error, actually. So what you can see here is actually trying again. So there is a built-in diagnostic agent that allows it to retry. So just give it a few moments and should come back with some sort of response over here. Perfect. It regenerated the attempt. And now we will hopefully see it generating the output. With more intensive SQL queries, and given that the data set is about 100 million records, if not more, would take and expect a few seconds for it to retrieve the data. And finally, there we go, was able to fix its own error and essentially retrieve the data that we're looking at. Pretty cool. All right, so at this point, we have a very actionable list of items that should be relocated from one store to another. We can see the exact amount to pull back, so the units to transfer, as well as the store to transfer it to, so the receiving location. And so in actually actioning on these recommendations, you will be able to reduce inventory carrying costs and free up the cash flow. And so this chat example shows how you can just explore an idea with unparalleled flexibility, accuracy, and ease using Lumi's chat interface. At this point, there's a few actions you can take. You can choose to thumbs up or thumbs down the response, and this acts as a reinforcement mechanism that just improves the quality of responses over time. You can request verification from a SME, so please action on this list, for example, and they'll get a notification. You can choose to share this with anyone on your team, or, and to tie this back to where we started, you can choose to pin this to a board. And upon doing that, you'll be able to set automated refreshes and alerts and all of that stuff. And so this is here. This is the view that you can have here. Edit. You can kind of move things around if you want to, resize them however way you wish. You can publish this to everyone on the team. You can schedule the refresh cadence. And to set alerts, all you got to do is just click into the card and set alerts. And you can have a variety of controls here to configure whatever notifications that are meaningful to your business. So enabling such high quality responses from agentic systems requires rich context. I think this has been the theme with a few of the demos that we saw leading up to this. And this is managed via the knowledge base within Lumi. This acts as a central repository that curates and maintains this critical context which in this age of agents is essentially infrastructure. To create a knowledge base, you first have to establish a connection to the target system. So we offer a wide variety of controls or connectors rather to all the major ERPs, databases, data warehouses. And all you'd need to do is essentially fill in these connection properties and give us read-only access. Once you've connected the data set, you'll be prompted to configure the data model. And so you can click next. And at this point, there are two options you can take. You can either manually configure the data model or use the magic wand feature, which uses AI to streamline the setup for you. You simply have to specify the type of data that you're working with, for example, SAP or supply chain data from SAP, and the objective you're looking to take on, inventory optimization. You click Get Started, and then the agents will start building the data model on its own. This process tends to take anywhere up to 10 minutes, and so we don't have time in this demo to actually showcase that. But in the meantime, I will show you what a complete knowledge base can look like. And so if you're an admin or a contributor, you'll have this edit button here, and this essentially allows you to modify the context in the knowledge base. So you have the ability to select any of the tables that you want from the database you connected to. And for each of the tables, you can choose the fields that you want Lumi to know about and query, and you can see the fields that were selected in the preview. One thing that we also do is run some sample metametrics. So for example, the percentage of null values, we automatically pull this information because it's really useful in context for the agents. Naturally, how this is applied is if a column has 95% null, it likely won't use it in its logic or in its analysis. So again, just a lot of control over the context that is being pulled in here. And really, you're contextualizing all these tables and fields so that Lumi understands how to navigate your data structures. It understands that I can join the bill of materials table to the inventory table and item ID. And you can also choose to define explicit join conditions as you want without an issue. All of this is just extra context just made available to the agents when answering users' questions. You can also define business context, so any details, aliases, KPIs can just be defined in plain language. And the world's your oyster here. We've seen clients be really creative with how they've provided this context, this tribal knowledge. And they realize that the more you invest in having a robust, rich context layer, the higher the quality of the output you get from the agents. And then finally, we talked about how there's a thumbs up, thumbs down mechanism. Lumi has the ability, in the memories tab, you can kind of choose to commit certain feedback or ignore it and into the knowledge base. And so essentially this reinforces examples of good, do more of good, or hey, this was bad, don't do this moving forward. So again, just a way to constantly ensuring that Lumi learns from the user base and just gets better at improving its quality responses over time. And so in summary, Lumi's knowledge base is a highly streamlined context management interface that gives users a lot of control and precision over the context needed to enable high quality responses from agentic system geared towards data and analytics. To get started, and for enterprises looking for a low risk, low effort way to trial Lumi's capabilities, we have a pilot program where success hinges on proving ROI. We offer white glove onboarding services requiring minimal effort from your team, an average time to value of about 1 week. If you'd like to enroll, please feel free to reach out or scan the QR code. Brian, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ibrahim. Excellent demo. And if you guys liked what you saw, make sure to leave a follow-up with a call to action below from Lumi AI. And with that, concludes our Agentic AI Showcase for Q1. So thank you all for joining us. If you missed anything and want to rewatch any of the webinar, you can refresh this page right after the webinar concludes, and it will be available at the same URL that you're watching it here. We'll also send out the recording on our YouTube channel tomorrow. I want to say a special thank you again to all of our presenters for joining us. Excellent demos. And thank you, of course, to our sponsors for making this incredible event possible. Our headlining sponsors, Informatica and PromptQL, and sponsors Teradata, Lumi AI, and Precisely. We'll see you all again next time. Thank you.